And you're on the record. Maneesha Kelkar, thank you so much for joining us here on ITV Gold. You do represent the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for inviting me to the show, and I'm really excited about speaking about some of these issues.
Yes, we have lots to discuss. There's so much happening in the nation, Maneesha, but just beginning this interview for our viewers who may not know about the Alliance for Immigrant Justice, give us a little insight into what the Alliance has been doing. And in terms of your programs, how have they been running?
Right. So the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, and we'll call it the Alliance for short, is a coalition of 40 member organizations of all stripes. The goal is that the common point is immigration. So these organizations could be community-based organizations, direct service organizations. We have labor groups. We have a lot of religious groups. But all of these are working towards one form of immigration support or another. And at the Alliance, all these organizations come together to, and we get together to help or to support the passing of legislation that is immigrant friendly.
Very interesting. You know, just digging right into the topic of discussion here, I have so many questions for you since, you know, the work that you're doing is in immigrant rights, is in racial justice. It's been nearly a month since George Floyd's death. And, you know, after him, we've seen Rayshard Brooks, and we've seen so many other cases that have come out in the limelight. My question to you is, you know, what has been the Alliance's take on this entire situation? And there has been a huge call for police reform, for ending of systemic racism. I would like to know where you stand on that.
Well, to start with, there's just no doubt about the fact that what's happening is just plain wrong. We are dismayed. We are absolutely dismayed by police brutality. And it's been going on for a great number of years. So we at the Alliance believe, like many others around us, believe that it's time to take a second look at law enforcement. We need to rethink and reimagine law enforcement. But at the same time, resources need to be spent on communities. Our community resources should go straight to the community in ways that expand communities' abilities to thrive. So we need more money to go into social services, into our schools, into direct services that help the poor. And so that really is where communities will prosper.
You know, in terms of these changes that we're talking about and what the community also needs, I want to look at what has happened so far. There have been states that have banned chokeholds. 50A has been repealed. Right now, the Senate is also deciding on a reformation of some kind. What is your take on this? And is this enough?
Well, these, every state, every community, every municipality, and at the federal level is going to be addressing a reimagining of police in some way or the other. And the specifics of that really depend on each community and each group. At the Alliance, we don't go into the specifics of how these things should be done, because I think that there are a number of organizations that are at the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement. And those are the folks that are impacted the most. They're the ones that must lead this. And we play a supportive role in a number of ways. So we look to them for leadership, and we provide our support.
Very nice. You know, just talking about what is going on here in terms of, the role and responsibility of the immigrant community, and especially the South Asian community. I'd like to reflect upon your opinions on systemic racism and anti-Blackness. And how important is it for us to discuss that right now, everything that's happening amongst the South Asian diaspora, according to you?
it's critical. I am so glad that you have raised this topic, this point, this issue. You raised it at the most perfect time, because we have huge subconscious racism embedded in our own communities. We know that, we all know that. I don't think anyone will deny that. But this is a time when we have to face that. We have to face this issue and address it and recognize that it exists within our communities too. When we prefer lighter skin to darker skin within our communities, that's inherent racism. When we look at caste, which is so embedded in South Asian culture, that's a form of racism. It's a form of discrimination. It's a form of creating hierarchies. And it's not that we are especially terrible as a community. Creating hierarchies is almost a part of human existence. The point is that we need to recognize that we have been doing it, we have done it. We have to recognize the harm that is done, and we have to challenge our own biases and find solutions within our own communities.
Definitely. And I am sure you would say that the South Asian community could be one of the greatest allies of the Black community in this cause, especially. Wouldn't you say that?
Indeed. Absolutely. We have also faced discrimination of a kind of our own, although nothing that quite parallels or comes close to what Black people have faced. But we have also faced discrimination and still do. So then it should become easier for us to empathize, right? So I think that this is the perfect moment when our own communities should be reflecting. We should all be reflecting on this as central to us.
I think that was a very important message, and I really appreciate you for having that conversation on systemic racism and anti-Blackness with us. I want to go into DACA now, because I know the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice also released their own statement in support for Supreme Court's holding of DACA. How important is this ruling according to you? And why was it so important to showcase support for the Supreme Court in its decision?
Well, DACA provides protection against deportation to, as you know, 800,000 recipients. Of these, 16,000 reside in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
So that's a huge number. It's about a fifth reside in New Jersey. So in New Jersey particularly, it's a really important issue to weigh in on. We want to see DACA recipients move on. We hope to see this to become legislation in the future. We hope that these people who were brought here as children are able to stay here because they know no other country. They're immigrants, they're undocumented, and they know no other life. And so this is where they belong. This is where they work. This is where they pay taxes. And this is where they should be. So it is a really, really important, this judgment that came down from Supreme Court is really, really important for the immigrant community.
What is missing in this entire process right now, according to you? There's so much uncertainty for the future of DACA, of all these opinions. How are you sort of processing it, and how is the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice sort of looking at that?
There is uncertainty. There's no question about it. There are a couple of different ways that the administration could move and change things for DACA. We hope that won't happen. And given the timeline right now, it probably won't happen anytime soon. But the main goal of, immigration, the main goal is to look beyond DACA. DACA is just a deferral. It's a short-term measure. The goal is to find a path to legalization eventually. The DREAM Act tried to do that. That didn't work. It was rescinded. But that's the goal we should be looking at. DACA is the beginning. The eventual goal, hopefully, is a path to legalization.
Is there something we could do to advocate our voices for this, perhaps with the Alliance or just in general?
Well, you can definitely become an Alliance supporter. If you go on our website, it allows you to become a supporter. You get folded into all of our actions. We take actions all the time. We call senators, we call legislators, we call local officials, we call administrators. We have Facebook Live webinars. We have, and then when times are different, or let's say times are normal, we actually go out and protest out actually in public, which has become such a rarity now. And the more the merrier, the more support we can get, the more South Asians, and I assume that your channel is primarily for South Asians, the more South Asians that are brought into this whole movement, the better. And specifically, let me tell you, what is not so well known in the community is that there are 115,000 undocumented Asians living in New Jersey alone.
Oh, wow.
115,000. And of that, 30,000 are Indian.
Oh, wow.
Who amongst us knows that there are 30,000 undocumented Indians alone living in New Jersey? So now think about it. Of these staggering numbers, there have to be so many eligible DACA recipients. People who haven't even applied, people who may not be aware, or people who don't want to come out of the shadows. And so that, I want to place this exactly in our community. This is an issue that affects us directly.
Yes, for sure.
It's not someone else's issue.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to sort of address that there are members of our own community, our own diaspora that are being impacted by this and perhaps need a voice to advocate. I kind of want to use the last part of this interview real quickly to discuss the COVID-19 relief efforts done by the Alliance. How have your programs changed with the impact of COVID-19? And when you're looking at the immigrant community, since you work directly with them, have you seen the ramifications of the economy and the healthcare impact them directly?
Absolutely. So keep in mind that the Alliance is not a direct service organization, so we don't actually have programs that serve immigrants directly, such as food distribution or things like that, but our members do. And so of our 40 members, majority of our members are involved in COVID-related relief activities. They have found enormous levels of, and every day they're finding enormous levels of unemployment, food scarcity, rent issues. They have members who are being evicted. There's absolute upheaval, enormous upheaval going on. And so our members are working beyond normal hours, way beyond normal hours, going out to communities, delivering food, helping with healthcare whenever possible. We have many religious organizations that have direct service work, and it's an enormous. This pandemic has just completely hit immigrants in the most terrible ways, and our members are doing a fine job, a more than a fine job of addressing that.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question here. With reopening happening everywhere, what is your focus for the next few weeks?
Reopening is happening, but like I said, since we are not a direct service organization, we are not, our offices are not open, but we just, I think we just all have to be really careful, because this reopening could go many different ways. And if reopening is not going to be go along with care, if people are not reopening with a lot of care, wearing masks, taking all the precautions, social distancing, it could turn out really poorly for us. And mainly, immigrants tend to be in occupations that are really vulnerable.
Yeah.
There's an overwhelming number of immigrants that are in food service, in home health care, just healthcare in general, healthcare provision. And these are the front lines. These are the front lines of COVID. And so opening up, I think, jeopardizes immigrants even more.
Wow. Well, I truly appreciate you for your time here on ITV Gold. I think these discussions are so important for us to educate our viewers on to what's happening. And again, I really thank you for your time. I would just like for you to give one last message to our audience. Around anything you would like.
Well, I would go back to the DACA and racism issue that you raised earlier. Two issues that this is the most perfect time of all to re-examine our own biases and to address racism within our own communities. And the second thing is that the DACA issue is home. It is in our homes. And please understand that it is as much an immigrant issue as it is as much a South Asian issue as it is a large overall immigrant issue.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for your time, Maneesha.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this issue up on your programming. Thank you.